Welcome to a new video episode of Wrestling Memories. I'm David.
I'm Jose.
And we're going to talk about the historical importance of the wrestling magazine. Now, the wrestling magazine actually dates back to the 1940s in Chicago in 1946. And there was an actual magazine that has been running in Mexico ever since, called Boxy Lucha. The current magazine we started following in the 1980s. There were several magazines, but what we became known as the Apter magazine, first published by Stanley Weston, edited by Bill Apter, were Inside Wrestling and Pro Wrestling Illustrated. And we have several magazines in front of us we were going to talk about. The first one I started with in early 1986, Pro Wrestling Illustrated, the cover of the Great American Bash, which is dated about December of 1986. And the thing about the wrestling magazine was they were published months and months later after the event.
Yeah, remember that.
But today, we have the internet, and then it was cable. The wrestling magazine was our only source of information, the facts, the pictures, the events.
Yeah, and the memories.
The cable television brought Wrestling National. The magazines actually brought Wrestling National first.
Yeah, that's what I like about them, because they bring back a lot of memories to me. And the reason why I got into wrestling magazines is because of that. The memories and stuff that I didn't see on TV. And, I wish I would have saw that match. And, like I said, back to my favorites, when I saw a match that I liked the most. You know, so...
When did you first discover the wrestling magazine?
Back in the 80s, like you said, when it first came out. Like in the 80s, 82, I think, 83. I'm not 100% sure. But I remember seeing them. I couldn't afford them back then, because I was still in high school. But then once I could afford a magazine, I always got my favorites. And some I don't have here today, but like this is one of my favorites. And you know, the feud of Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant.
About 1987.
Yeah, and this was dated 88, but like you said, it comes out before.
Many months later, after the event already took place.
Yeah.
The wrestling magazine, but the historical significance, it's so historically significant to us. It was so important to us. All that was available was, World Wrestling Federation in the New England Northeast states. And they had the Madison Square Gardens network, they had the cable networks, Prism, and that's all we were shown was the WWF. Now, the other larger territories, the American Wrestling Association out west, in the northern states, you had World Class down in Texas, and you had Championship Wrestling from Florida in Florida. But unless you lived in those states, that's all you knew was that is the WWF, went national with cable television, and they started expanding into those states and those arenas where those territories associated with. But unless you lived in those areas, you had those territories to watch.
Yeah.
These wrestling magazines brought us the territories we had never heard of. And we're both I'm from Pennsylvania, and from Philadelphia. It's how I became associated and learned about professional wrestling.
Well, I started back in the 70s. I say 77, 76, 77, 78, when Bob Backlund, wrestled back then, and you had Bruno Sammartino and Great Valentine, Tito Santana, who we know personally. Wrestlers like that, Don Morocco. I got into all of them. They were like my favorite wrestlers back then. Superstar Billy Graham, one of my favorites. And then when you got closer, more towards the 80s, when more program came on TV, UWF, AWA, NWA was one of my favorites. I would go back and forth. You had more of a choice.
The territories obtained television and the video trading themselves, and they started to milk into our local television, depending on the network, and they were actually starting to mix and associate with each other. That's how we started seeing some of the territories. Those territories attempted a national expansion.
Yeah.
The one key thing about the wrestling magazine is the features. In spite, we all see the covers and who's on the cover.
Yeah.
The one key thing I learned about wrestling was, yes, the territories inside wrestling magazine. had one special feature, and I learned all the territories, especially around the world.
Yeah, the ratings. You talking about who's the number one contender and all that?
And you have to keep changing pages just to get to this specific issue, information, the facts you want to learn about.
Well, I like the posters. Never take them out the magazines. One of my favorites, Kurt Angle. Anybody know him as Mr. Perfect in WWF. But, well,
Inside Wrestling Magazine had a special page called the Roll Call Champions. It is the only magazine that covered every champion around the world.
Yes.
United States, the territories. Yep. This page alone told you every territory that existed. Now, most magazines, yes, they'll cover a lot of territories. They'll say it took place in Florida, and California, and Texas, Pennsylvania. This list in the Roll Call Champions actually told you the newest champion of this current month. And this would be the August 1986 issue. When in Philadelphia, when the Rock'n'Roll Express defeated the Midnight Express to regain the NWA World Tag Team titles, I was there, August 16, 1986. The Roll Call Champions page talked about the Japan promotions, All Japan Pro Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, the American Wrestling Association, Central States, the Mid-Atlantic, the Pacific Northwest, Southeast, World Wrestling Council down in Puerto Rico. It was incredible learning, watching all these new champions each month, and we didn't get to see that because the only television we had was Crockett, the National Wrestling Alliance, World Wrestling Federation out of the Northeast. Yeah. American Wrestling Association was using ESPN. Some of the territories were able to use ESPN or the USA Network, and we were just learning these new companies. These magazines gave us an outlet. An outlet. Seeing what we didn't know existed. And then the magazines would cover, as just like the Great American Bash 96 tour. What was incredible about this issue, unlike any other, the PWI or any other magazine that covered, was this was an incredible issue, was the Great American Bash on tour from Philadelphia and Atlanta with a 14-day tour, a 14-city tour. Every result of all that.
All the matches, what happened? Right.
This is an incredible page, and
match by match,
every single match of each show from Philadelphia and Washington D.C. and Memphis, Charleston, South Carolina, Cincinnati, Charleston. So this is a whole Great American Bash on tour, and it was incredible how they wrote every result. Many magazines would say, "Oh, this took place in Florida, California." They might say the city. But they're not going to talk about mostly we're not going to talk about the promotion's name. Yeah. Pro Wrestling Illustrated, it's a wrestling magazine published by Stanley Weston and edited by Bill Apter. The photos taken, we're seeing what even television didn't get to see it. The reason why it's the question of why they didn't show us. They wanted us to go there to the live show and see this. And they won't even mention, the feud that's taking place, been going on for months, and it's called the blow-off or the continuation, and they will go to the arena, go to the stadium, and then see the end of this feud or the beginning, in the middle. For us to go to the show, that's all they wanted us to see, and these magazines showed what took place in those shows. Yep. Then eventually videotape trading started. Then the internet came about into the early to mid-late 90s. And then video trading, and then we started talking to people on the internet about the results. That's what eventually killed the wrestling magazine into the 2000 period. Yes. These magazines are so historically important to old school wrestling fans like us.
Like me too. This one another of my favorite magazines. Show you that year in 87 when Dusty and Nikita won the Crockett Cup.
It was the Superpowers, and some magazines covered the reasons Dusty Rhodes and MTA Dusty Rhodes and Nikita Cross teamed up because of MagTM's car accident and the issue.
I had that magazine with.
You have a magazine of the. I
think it has the whole story of when he had got in the
car accident.
It's one of these books I have. I got so many magazines, but this is the one they're talking about. Mike Von Erich when he passed.
Von Erich passed away.
this whole thing, they had a whole story about him right here, as you see. Right there in that page. And it starts off, it tells you everything about his tragic death.
Yeah, these magazines covered the bios, and usually you have the intact the intact centerfolds.
Yeah.
Pro Wrestling Illustrated.
Yep. This one, you can look at that one. Show the cover first. One another of my favorites. When Steamboat and Macho Man. And this one has centerfold.
Most people remove the centerfold from Pro Wrestling Illustrated, and the one very also significant.
Well, I used to do it too. I used to do it.
The also significant thing about Pro Wrestling Illustrated was they call the close-up or the centerfold picture. You learned so much. This is about George Animal Steel. Was the close-up was the bio, learning about their how they started, their trained by, where they come from. Most of their career, it was an incredible.
To me, it was
an incredible read.
I like the picture because it tells you everything, and then I used to rip them out.
Yeah, and I have a notebook full of almost everything I've removed.
I used to rip them out and hang them up on my wall.
Now, there were so many wrestling magazines throughout the years.
Another favorite of mine, Steamboat with Flair.
One of the oldest ones, and this is the 25th anniversary of The Wrestler, also part of the Stanley West and Bill Apter collection. And Bill Apter himself created this list, Pro Wrestling Illustrated, the PWI 500. He chose from 1 to 500 the top and least. There were a couple of issues of that. There is one type of, wouldn't call it magazine, that many even today follow this newsletter called the Wrestling Observer. Many call it a dirt sheet. Run by Dave Meltzer. Respect or disrespect, I can't apply what I think of Wrestling Observer. A lot of details, and I'm curious myself, how does he obtain so much detail? It is beyond.
I think they had a lot of reporters.
He knows people in the business that it's like telling the secrets. Practically, he says what they call the dirt sheets. They're practically telling secrets. I know. He gives them 1-star, 5-star matches, and he's created Observer Hall of Fame and the awards issue of Pro Wrestling Illustrated. It's one thing as old school wrestling fans look forward to, and they gave us the option of the fan write-in. The fan chose the Wrestler of the Year, Tag Team of the Year, Match of the Year.
That's what I like about this issue that you have right there.
The 100th anniversary, 100th issue of Pro Wrestling Illustrated.
It shows you and the cover shows you all the other magazines.
The
ones that came out. And they got a lot of posters in that one. I'm surprised they kept the posters in them.
The result, magazines are the results. There's a super card, and this issue was all called the super cards.
Yeah, you had 2 of those out here, right? Which one do you want to start with? We got 87, of course.
87 was all these.
What year did it start? I can't remember. What year did it start? Did it start in 87?
The Pro Wrestling Illustrated?
No, the Supercard. What year? I'm trying to remember. That's the only thing I
believe 1985. They had the 1985 Great American Bash. They had a full issue covering that. Then the more the territories attempted their own national expansion, they had the bigger shows. And that's what Pro Wrestling Illustrated. These bigger shows. Well, WrestleMania is national, yes. Then the Jim Crockett Senior Memorial Tag Team Tournament had from Japan and many of the territories. Even though Crockett started to buy up the territories, he had a tag team tournament of the collection of those.
That's what I like about it, because it came out more in one magazine that year
also,
too.
The coverage of the Von Erich Memorial Parade Champions.
Just like Dusty Rhodes when they won the Cup that year, same thing, cover. And then they have them here also.
Without purchasing the video or the pay-per-view, these magazines showed us what went on. And in these magazines, that's why they were so historically important.
So like about the posters, see? The Supercard.
Yeah, and the
body slam.
The picture of the 1987 Crockett Cup that took place in Baltimore, and the first one was in 86 New Orleans. But these photos were so important to us, and unless we purchased their video, and they were ranging 40, 50, 60 and up. just like the pay-per-views used to be.
I think that's the one when they won the match when Dusty and Nikita beat
Bill Apter and many others were incredible photographers.
Tully Blanchard and what was it? Lex Luger when they was tagging up together.
Now you wanted to talk about the one favorite thing that you had is the rating system of the wrestling magazine.
Yeah, I always liked it because, well, back then WWE used to do it on TV. I would tell you who's the number one contender, and
many of the matches.
I always tell you who's the number one tag team, and the magazines always told you who was the best tag team in the world,
and you learned who were the top guys.
Yep.
And even the magazines, the episodes, whether it be Crockett for Worldwide Wrestling or WWF shows, they had contenders matches, number 1 against number 2 to face the champion.
Yeah.
And the magazines, those ratings, you saw who the the top guy was.
But even though people got to vote it for it too, the most popular and the most hated wrestler in these magazines, and they always, of course, Ric Flair was number 1, the most hated wrestler, one of my favorites. And as you see, one of my favorite magazines, when the Four Horsemen together,
They held all the titles in
1997. Yep, all the titles. And,
so one thing
and the most popular one, of course, they always changed it every time.
When we were getting ready to put this video together, the one thing you mentioned, unless somebody can bring a photo of, a magazine photo of, is the original Four Horsemen, Ole Arn Anderson, Rick Frontley Blanchard, and you mentioned that I don't think a magazine actually showed a photo of the original Horsemen. This is when Ole had left and Barry Windham had turned heel, and this is the photo of them with all the gold.
Before Barry Windham even joined them, it was Lex Luger first.
Yes.
So I don't think they had one with Lex Luger in it cover.
I believe there is, but you are right. I wish someone if they could produce a magazine cover.
A magazine cover with Odie. I want to see one with Odie first because he was supposed to be an original.
Now, probably in the magazines, yes, you will find a black and white photo of the original Horseman with Ole in it. Produce, whether it's Wrestling Magazine, Pro Wrestling Illustrated, or any other magazines, show us a photo of the original Horseman with Ole Anderson. I think that'd be very rare.
Yeah, I have never seen one.
Now,
like this is the one I've seen, and I still haven't seen one with Lex Luger on the front of the magazine. It could be one out there.
There probably is. We just don't have it in front of us.
I never seen it because I probably would have picked it up because I always liked the Four Horsemen.
And some years back, someone was giving up watching wrestling, and they gave us maybe a box of wrestling magazines, and it was about 2, 3, 4 boxes worth. And it was actually my brother who said, "I found it." It was Pro Wrestling Illustrated, the first issue, September 1979. And
you have that with you?
I unfortunately
don't. I
hate to use the word assault. I regret it.
Hey, I regret a lot of things.
We had so many magazines, but like all of us, so wrestling, it goes in cycles. It gets on our nerves, and now we look back at its history. But when it was gets on your nerves at times where who was the bigger company, WCW or WWE, WWF? They get this is enough. I'm not watching this anymore.
Yeah.
I sold a lot of items.
When I get disappointed, that's when I do too. Like if a favorite wrestler that I like actually disappoint me, and if he's in a magazine,
have you ever thought of you would cut a photo out of a magazine not to see that wrestler?
Well, maybe not. Depends on the magazine.
I think I did.
It depends on the magazine.
I even in many of these magazines because before there were someone I believe it was Royal Duncan. I'm unfortunately remember Royal Duncan and another gentleman. They created a very large book, very large thick book. It was title histories. It's now on the internet, much more expanded. But the title histories, wow. You learned a lot of wrestling history from the champions of the past, and it was an incredible book they put together.
Yeah. Trying to see if I can find that one we were talking about earlier when Magnum TA got in the car crash. I know it's in here somewhere.
There were so many, and also there's another book called Pro Wrestling History, and Jason Campbell, he runs that website, and he also produced a book of all the major shows of the past. The Wrestling Magazine, those books, Wrestling Observer, everyone, you have the internet, you have WWE, and that's the only one left.
Yeah.
The internet, now we have the internet for all wrestling history. Before there was cable television that brought it into our home.
So that's why I noticed you haven't brung a WWF magazine. For me, I don't like it.
I didn't care to.
Me either.
I may have purchased one. I didn't care for WWF magazine.
I did have one too.
Lack of a better word, I'd call it selfish. Yes, it's their company, their magazine.
Yeah.
I didn't care.
And what they did was they never talked about, no offense, other companies like wrestling industry.
They only wanted to talk about who they wanted to talk about.
They talked about everybody, and this is Starrcade
and
88.
Especially when you have Vince Russo as one of the editors of those that ran the magazine. Don't care for much about Vince Russo, and I'll thank Jim Cornette for that.
Not important. Thought somebody text me.
The one thing about that I mentioned before is the Pro Wrestling Illustrated, the issue of the 500 issue. Yes, it shows a lot of wrestlers that still, maybe are not covered in the other territories and the companies. I didn't honestly care for the 500. Yes, I think of how they were rated. Maybe I didn't. The top stars were the top ones, so the 500 really didn't grab my attention. But what did grab my attention all those years was the photos and the historical information of the territories. And you learned a lot about it. The one thing also that you learned about the territories was a Pro Wrestling Illustrated video. And renting from the video store was called Pro Wrestling Illustrated Superstars and Super Bouts. And a podcast just recently released of how that was created. That video showed us a lot from the past, Japan, all the territories. This is an incredible video. Now you can probably see it on YouTube now, but I rented a video where they wanted most of these VHS tapes, they wanted $40, $50, and that's a lot of money for no input.
I'm better watching on YouTube. Save money. I ain't paying no $50 for an old tape, no way.
These magazines were.
Do you have a VCR?
Yeah, yes, I still do.
I don't. If you put it on DVD player, then I can watch it, but not a VCR. Not no more. Yeah. That's what I like about these magazines. Well, we was talking about Starrcade. This one is my favorite too, because inside
that would cover spring. This one covers spring of 1988.
Yeah, spring of 1988.
And the later,
that's one of my favorites.
Some magazines, Pro Wrestling Illustrated, their issue would be March of 1980, March of the year, and it would say there was the end of the year awards. And what confused us as wrestling fans was. You would think that the year awards would come in December or January. No, because these wrestling magazines were published months and months and months, 6 months at least, 3 to 6 months later.
Yeah.
Everyone confused you with the issue, the
date.
Like December 1986 was featured in the summer. You see how many months ahead that was put. Something changed in 1989.
I don't know about this.
It started in September 1989, and I was only a few issues later when I discovered this subscription, Pro Wrestling Illustrated PWI Weekly. It was a fold-out. It was like the paper that this is made of. It was a fold-out of the week's shows. The most significant issue that
was it like a poster.
It was like how the posters would fold out, but it was in the form of this paper.
Cool.
And it started in September 1989.
I had one of those pieces.
I had years of it, and economically, I ended up selling it. Or it was because the cycle of wrestling got on my nerves. I sold it, and I wish I kept one issue. PWI Weekly was so cool.
I mean, I heard about it. I heard about the weekly.
The most significant issue that got my attention, one of the first ones I got, was it covered Kurt Hennig had won the vacant Intercontinental title April 1990 and defeated Tito Santana in the final match. And
I've seen the match.
You wouldn't have maybe seen that probably if it was April 1990. You wouldn't have seen it probably until the end of the year-ish, way to the end of the year.
Yeah. But they also mention in these magazines match of the year, like every year.
Yeah, it's how they pick the match of the year. And as when you started the tape trading, you wanted to find that match the whole show.
Yeah. Like one of my favorites, Randy Savage and Ricky Steamboat on WrestleMania, what was it?
WrestleMania 3.
3? Okay.
Well, but I think they...
And that's one of the best matches I've ever seen, besides Steamboat and Flair fighting all the time. But WrestleMania, that was considered that year the match of the year.
Yeah. And Wrestling Observer, everyone considered the Ricky Steamboat Randy Savage match is a match you learn by. Even in the past 20 years, the wannabe wrestlers that go into wrestling schools, they said watch that match, and that's how you
learn how to wrestle. Yeah. Like today, they don't even talk about wrestling of the year anymore. I mean, but WWE got their own stupid award show.
Yeah,
I think
they had the slamming.
When it's all set up, to me, the fans don't even get to vote no more. What it should.
Old school wrestling fans like us kept these magazines to remember how historically important these were.
And what wrestling meant to me, it was really important because today I think it's so cartoony. For real.
These guys worked for a living. Now I don't know how to describe the wrestlers today. These guys went 360 days a year, and how
living in their cars.
And oh my God, they're paying their dues.
Yeah, I heard a bunch of them living in the cars.
How much little money they made.
Living on the couch. Somebody's couch.
But before the cable just started coming in our homes and showing us different wrestling companies, these magazines were our only access.
Yeah.
So what was out there?
That was our internet.
Yes, this was our internet. This was our cable.
Yeah. That's why I like the bottom because, like you said, when you read the ratings, and every time they change them, like, you find out, let me see, where the ratings at. Find me the page where the ratings at, so...
It's it's fun searching all the different stories.
Well, I like it. Yeah, well, that's also.
And they were selling their videos in these magazines.
Yes. You find the ratings again. I always can't find them sometimes, but they're in there. And then it'll be like, and I like that too. The page that show you dream matches. They would have dream matches.
These are
that matches that happen or
these are took place. This is the one from Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And now how many of these magazines would show,
but they also had the dream
feature matches.
You ever seen the one that says the dream matches? I used to like that too.
I think it was Wrestling Superstars. They created a feature of the dream matches. Bruno Sammartino against Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
Honky Tonk Man against Pedro Morales.
Yes, stuff like that.
Some of these matches.
I'm surprised they never made a video game of that, like. The old superstars fight the new superstars.
It was incredible. The Wrestling Superstars magazine, when they did the Bruno Sammartino Hulk Hogan, it was incredible how they talk how the match, the whole match went on, how it ended, the rest of the show results. We all today now look back at what the dream matches would have been.
Yeah. Well, that's what they did. They held off a lot of matches. Like everybody wanted to see Flair and Hogan so much. That when they finally did it, it was so much a disappointment.
What ruined, the dream match? We all see these magazines. We saw, Ric Flair in the end of National Wrestling Alliance with Jim Crockett, Hulk Hogan, the World Wrestling Federation. The reason why I've read and heard that it didn't work out is Vince McMahon's bookers. It wasn't is it him? The people like George Scott. I've heard of many bookers like him cared more about the house shows and not what would be televised. They think television wasn't going to make money. You made more money on the house shows. Yeah. Just like what happened to Tito Santana and Greg Valentine. They didn't make WrestleMania. They went on WrestleMania 1 for that very reason. Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair were not part of WrestleMania 8 because they failed in the house show attraction. Yeah. The opposite, Tito Santana and Greg Valentine, their attraction in the house shows, why put it on the biggest show, which we not sure is going to work.
They made a lot of mistakes.
Oh yeah, but these magazines that
was my.
It's a time machine. These magazines were a time machine, and
well, now they're in a time machine, but back then
they're so
important. Had nothing to do on a rainy day.
Historically important.
How many times you read your magazine? You think, I've done read it over and over so many times, and sometimes you find something that you skip, and you go back.
Yeah, go back over it.
Wait a minute.
In these magazines, yes, here.
That's what I liked about it.
As I mentioned before, the Porcelain Illustrated Lords of the Ring video. Yeah. Incredible, great video produced. They wanted $44.95 for teenagers. we could barely afford to get to the show ourselves. To get to a wrestling show, it costs us $20.
Yeah, it depends if you get no bleed section, $20.
And all the advertisements.
Yeah.
We're just like any other magazine you would buy on all the other fashion magazines.
Try to sell you them X-ray goggles. Oh, I like the when they used to try to sell you the wrestlers. You missed the roll call one.
Yeah.
Well, back up the roll call. One more. Right there. See?
Yeah.
That's what I like.
Now here's your rating. The rating system. Honest to God, I wasn't really the rating system really didn't grab my attention. Yes, it showed us the other wrestlers that maybe didn't make television, but in house shows they did. But these are the overall. The magazines found significant.
The top 15 back. Okay, what year is this?
I believe 19. Yeah, the 1986 issue.
Yeah, 86 issue. Ric Flair is number 1. So, look, number 15, Stan Hansen. And then you go by, of course, NWA, AWA, WWF. Most popular, like I said, and most hated. Okay, well, back then, the most hated one was Paul Orndorff. Well, I didn't like him either. And then the most popular, Hulk Hogan. I never liked him until he turned bad. Number 1 tag team. Look at that. See ya? Rock and Roll Express.
Because they had just the magazine covers Rock and Roll Express being the top tag team. They just regained the titles in Philadelphia.
Yeah, NWA tag team champions.
Road Warriors at number 2. Well, can you imagine the Road Warriors at number 2?
I know.
Ever.
Never. But they move them up and down. And
up and down.
That's why I like to watch them every time. But then you watch the most hated, like I said, most hated, and then it's like you don't see Ric Flair in here. Well, yeah, he's number 4. Usually he was number 1. And to me, like the most popular should have been, if I look at this list, I like the Magnum TA. He's number 7.
They'd also, so the ownership of the other wrestling magazines, if they're in the same catalog, they're the same publisher, the Sports Review Wrestling. Like this one, I'm looking at covers as a Kamal in the front and covers Stark 86. You would have to look at you would have to figure out which magazines would cover the supercard that television that those territories wanted you to go to the show, but they would mention they're not going to tell you the whole show because you were expected to go to that show.
Yeah.
And the magazine would cover that entire show with the great photos, great color photos.
But if you was at that show and you still want to get that magazine, just to hope. Because sometimes you did get people in the audience got lucky and got in the magazine behind a wrestler.
Yeah.
So I always wanted that to happen. Like, cause I'm like, man, I was actually in the magazine. Look, I was behind. And nope, he was behind his elbow.
Just look at
this one is something about Magnum TA a little bit. See, a little bit more story.
Yeah, one PWI cover has the car accident.
Yeah, I forget which one. I know I have it in here somewhere.
The two significant people I wanted to get credit for these magazines, publisher the late great Stanley Weston and Bill Apter. There was the Pro Wrestling Illustrated senior editor, and he is now going on to have his own.
But he's still around, right?
Yeah, he has his own YouTube channel, I believe.
Okay.
On Facebook and YouTube, and I submitted questions, and he covered a lot of my questions. And I told him I was going to do a video about the history of the wrestling magazines. He was looking forward to it, and we finally got this video done. These magazines were so special growing up as a teenager. Wrestling was so important to me that now it's a time machine, but keeping them, wrestling with only WWE left, it's such a disappointment. Back then, that's all there really was.
Gave you more option back then. There was much more action.
These magazines showed us what we missed on cable, missed on video, and it was the only news available.
Yes, yep, true that. Yep. That's why I got them. I always went and got me one every week when it came out.
It was so many boxes with so many boxes.
Some of them oh my God, some of them I couldn't afford at that time because I was like, what's more important, my magazine or a sandwich? And to me, the sandwich was more important. But sometimes now it's like, man, I should have got the magazine. Yeah.
So I want to thank everybody for watching this video.
Yeah.
Look at an historical look back in time to something that old school wrestling fans can appreciate.
Yep.
Looking back at the major shows, the wrestlers you didn't get to see on cable, and now you read about them, but the historical, again, I would say this so many times, the historical importance of the magazine, that before in cable and before internet, that's all we had.
Yes.
So, hope we look forward to our next viewing.
Yeah. Thank you.